and that can still happen.
Yeah,
And I'm using Christian as the quickest religion just that came to my head, not for any
yeah,
specific
no,
purpose. I just want to make sure that
all good.
everybody gets.
Yeah, no, but at least at least religion, you have a fundamental basis of saying, at the end of the day, all right, this is right and this is wrong, all right, and
Oh, real quick, I'm not
mhm,
talking about I just want to be very clear. I'm not talking about religion with this. I'm talking about God or gods. Religion is still
yeah,
around, like we were talking about. There's still there's religious things that exist like Jainism and Buddhism that
hmm
don't require the belief in a god or gods, and so religious practices aren't what I'm trying to get rid of whatsoever. I'm literally talking about the god or gods concept.
yeah, again, but 100%. I think that for certain people, if they didn't have the fear of God in them, all right, then their moral compass will be skewed completely.
Right. Now,
Um,
I would rebut that argument with if that hadn't been introduced to them, they wouldn't have that fucked up morality change.
I was thinking,
mm,
Jack, it might be a good idea to invite Snark to be a speaker today
Oh yeah,
up
get
here with
Lex in.
us.
Okay,
Yeah,
let me
and
get
then get
yeah.
Lex in. We can start building a more
Invite to
general
speak.
room where people can.
Very excited. Was it that was
There you go,
invite
Snark.
connect.
yeah, so
There
definitely
we
let
go.
other
And
people
then
have a
you know
say.
how to unmute on there, right, Lex?
And everyone else, please do jump in the caller queue here. We are also live on YouTube. So hello, everyone on YouTube.
Oh, super
Um,
duper. Hi, everybody on
So come
YouTube.
and join us on the new call-in app. I gave you guys the link, and we're just chilling out. We're talking about God today at 11 p.m. Eastern time tonight. It'll be Nivik's first episode, and Jordan Peterson is on the chopping block tonight, so that'll be interesting. So, but yeah,
Oh my
back
goodness.
back to you, Jack.
Oh, real quick, I'm excited to see if Nivik gets a superhero one. We got to make sure that it's like completely covered on the head part. Like you don't know who he is. It's gonna be great.
It's gonna be robot meets alien life form.
Ah, that's gonna be tight.
Oh yeah.
Exciting. I can't wait to see it. Oh man. Yeah, Lex, do you know how to unmute there? It should be in the bottom right corner of the screen, right next to the thumbs up button.
He says in the text chat, he maybe you could carry on with Snark for a bit until Lexicon's ready. He says he
Okay.
knows how to unmute, but he's not allowed at the moment. Looks like.
Oh, that's strange. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, Snark, can you unmute?
Yes, can you hear me?
All right. So, where were we at exactly or before we started that up?
Well, I was claiming, it's my feeling that for many people, where the complexity of philosophical morality, whatever your moral basis is, can lead them to make wrong choices when it comes to being conducive for society. And what simplifies life for a lot of these people is there is a God, there is a very clear right and wrong, and if you don't listen, you're gonna get in trouble. End of story. Now, you were claiming, if I understood you correctly, that maybe if they haven't been exposed to that to begin with, that wouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, I would go ahead and say that if they weren't shown that there's an archetypical sky daddy that's watching what they're doing and they're gonna get judged about it, maybe we get more morally neutral people than we would have liked, but maybe we also get more people that are actually themselves. Like
How
a lot of this is fake. Like the fact is, you're 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 basically looking at people and seeing how they're acting completely fake, expecting some sort of reward for acting in a way that they wouldn't normally act for some reason because somebody lied to them and told them that there's some treasure at the end of the tunnel.
okay, so let me ask this: you would agree that religion, right, that belief in this, how did you what was it used, Sky Daddy, is a
Yeah.
powerful
I use
motivation.
Sky Daddy for a lot of the gods, mostly the Judeo-Christian and Islam gods because they're the ones that have their more monotheistic specifically. But yeah, keep going.
Got it. But would you agree that that is a very powerful motivation? I've met many people that the sole reason they won't do a certain action or they are doing certain actions is because they literally believe this is what God wants from them. It's a very
Sure, and
powerful
I
motivator, right?
think oh sorry, go ahead. I thought you were done there.
No, no, that's it. Sorry, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say I also think that that's been done in in a million bad ways. I think that there's been a million bad ways that people have gone, well, my God says that this is okay, and therefore I'm going to do it, and that totally infringed on the will and the life of other people that didn't believe in that God.
Mm. Yes. So you're pointing out the risks of well, it's such a
It's
powerful motivator that it's going to cause people to do things that aren't conducive
it's an
to the
irrational
order of
mode.
society.
It's an irrational motivator because in any other context, like if I were to walk up to you on the street and I were to go, "Hey man, I'm gonna need you to just do everything that like I say and live by this code for the rest of your life," but after you die, dude, after you die, I've got like gifts and treasures that you would never have seen before. Like you'll never imagine it. I it,
What's
I
the
need
issue
I
with
need
that
you.
if it's a
Yeah, well,
strong motivator?
it's a strong motivator, but I don't think that there's nothing solid behind it. It's only
Why?
it's a motivator of control. Somebody is going to lie to somebody to control them with this great motivator.
Who
That's
cares?
that's usually how that
Who
starts at least.
cares? Who
Who
cares
cares?
if there's nothing
I
behind
I
it?
care.
Who cares if
I,
it's all
I care
bullshit?
because
Why?
I
Why?
would like I would like humanity to be genuine. I would like humans to be genuine. I'd like people to
Why?
be who they are and not some construct.
Oh, Lexicon just unmuted himself. Maybe
Oh, there you go.
we'll
What's
give
up,
it a shot.
Lexicon?
Yeah, not very much. I was just trying to catch back up because I had to restart the BlueStacks. I think was causing some problems. Wasn't letting me unmute.
So yeah, what do you think about the main topic, and then what do you think about what we were getting into right here?
Um, it's kind of hard to express this, but I have been thinking about it since the topic was brought up a couple days ago.
Okay.
I think the conceptions of gods um, that humans have proposed is inevitably going to disappear with time.
Okay.
But I think the mimetic need of a god in the human mindset won't. Um, I think we just end up replacing that psychological need with a separate drive. And I think that's why other nations that are particularly against the West will say things like the West views money as God.
Okay, so you're thinking more of like you're thinking we're probably moving towards a more Jordan Peterson type of conceptual. Is it a not like physical or literal or divine God?
Yeah, I think the divine God fulfilled a role that conceptually is necessary to the human mind.
Okay.
And that role it provided was a certainty in the system or a certainty in the group dynamic, something along those lines. And we are just replacing that with other conceptions.
Hmm. See, yeah,
It's
no, that would be the way it'd be going into with how at least Jordan Peterson feels about it from what I've read from him, which is
but I think in our effort to annihilate the or remove from society the god dynamic, you accidentally damage the mimetic need, and that's why quote unquote godless nations such as the Soviet Empire partly fall apart because I think it's just one of the many facets that binds people together as a group, and if it's not being fulfilled in some way, they just fracture.
well, I feel like that there was at least in the Soviet Union when there was a mimetic
What do you think of that
concept.
lexicon? That's an interesting point. What do you think of that versus like the dynamic of being part of a team? Because I remember like when I've never been like a religious man, but I remember a lot of the things that my religious friends would describe in their experiences and their feeling of camaraderie with others. I could very much relate with them to the feeling I had with my fellow teammates on my hockey team.
Very similar, but I think the difference between the religious camaraderie and the team camaraderie is it is in somehow by some method tied to survival. The instinctual need to survive. A team is a group that you work together to succeed, and we are goal oriented species. We love that shit. But I think for some reason religion is tied to our survival need response. and that's the hole that the God conception is filling.
Okay, so I think it's tied to. Oh, interesting. See, I feel like that is it may be true, but I think it's only true to an extent. I think it's only because it's been around as an explanation for things that long.
Well,
I think it's tied in the same way. Like I don't think it's tied in the same way like arteries and veins are like connected together. I think it's tied in the same way like that a string's tied to like something to keep it together. It's something that you could undo and it wouldn't really cause that much damage.
I do have a sort of example of what I mean. Very often, for a very long period of time in history, people would say we will survive if we are with God. And I also hear a very similar thing being said, if only I had more money. It's almost like there's a mental safety net with um, with the God conception, and I think on some fundamental level, it might even be below the conscious level. It fulfills something in people. And I think because of that, it'll never truly go away. It'll just change with time.
See, I think maybe that's true, and I actually do see where you're getting with the safety net idea of it. But that kind of leads me into what a lot of atheists would go into when it comes to that belief is that there's this. It's very scary to face what you're not sure of, but I think that it's better to be scared and like become courageous over your time due to that fear that you're feeling versus pretending that there's an answer and just being like what's the word purposely blissful or purposely unaware of that. Was it because I think
I've
I think on that safety net level it's a fear thing, and I think that you don't need to have that, and I think that in a strange way overcoming that fall necessarily from that safety net is something that can not only it can mentally strengthen people but I can also see the possible negative effects from it because not many people are capable of or not many
yeah,
a lot of people are capable of taking that mental
I think what you just suggested is a very much first world bias. The vast majority of people do not succeed. And by succeed, I mean they die young and horribly and in brutish ways.
right.
That's history, right?
Hmm.
Um, so I think the idea that that's a possibility for the majority of people to the point where that becomes the norm is a post scarcity possibility, not a reasonable thing. So I think when you ask the question, does humanity need God or not? I would say it still does. It's just a different conception of what that means to us.
Okay, see, and I have no problem with the shifting of this ideal or this concept inside of our heads to something else, but I do protest the idea of continuing to call it a god just for the sake of ease for people.
Yeah, I don't think the people who are engaging in this this meme of God would still call it God, but I think the Imam TV is very correct to say we worship money or to say, you know, that the social security net is false hope predicated on the destruction of others around us. Uh,
See,
they're right when they say that. We are only rich because of how we control the world.
in okay, we're only rich because of how we control the world. Okay, as people, as a nation,
As the West is the
okay,
world
as the
hegemon after
okay,
World War II and has controlled the
the
trade
West.
networks,
Got
controlled
it.
the
I just wanted to know what you were
yeah
using as the. There you go. I didn't realize we were talking about the entire like the West. Got it.
yeah. So they're definitely right in that respect when they think like that. Um, so yeah, I think it is still necessary. It's just is it necessary for us? Uh, I mean, not really, not for
Hey,
me, not for you.
Lex, I'm trying to invite you as a speaker so we could get Donald in here.
Yeah, no problem.
Get 1 second, so let me invite the speaker here. You can pop up here that I can get Donald on the call.
Yeah, and if you guys have something to say, or if you guys
Oh,
have something to say, just unmute yourself if you're in
for sure.
in the speaker column here. Looks like we have Donald and Meeting up to bat, so that's good.
Alrighty, so I'm gonna try and promote you to speaker again there, Lex. I'm gonna do it to Donald as well. Alright, Donald's been invited to speak as well, and then we can get Meeting in the next caller, or... Here we go.
Sorry, I
Okay.
didn't realize there was an accept button I had to press.
Oh, yeah, my bad. Is it, and Meeting the unmute button is in the bottom right.
Yep. So interesting discussion.
Okay. What you got going on, Donald?
Okay, I'll throw this out. It's something I've been thinking a lot about, just on and off. So I believe in God, and I think it's a cop-out to say, well, yeah, he flipped a switch, caused a big bang, and walked away. That's kind of too facile, kind of the deist approach from the founding fathers and the Enlightenment era and all that. Now, here's a question, just for food for thought. Okay, so there's lots of arguments and trying to prove the existence of God. Spinoza, the ontological argument. If there are hills, there must be valleys. There's stuff, there must be something created it. Lots of argument. Is there a kind of 2 or 3 or 1, and I know it's harder to prove a negative, arguments that say, no, there cannot be a God because fill in the blank? I can't think of one. It's not a question of whether I want to, be convinced otherwise, and I'm whatever. But I don't know. Is there an argument to kind of prove that no, they're logically inconclusive that God exists? Now, I'm big on logic, but I also like Jung. I like the idea of that there's things that we don't know about, and so partly, yeah, what's the argument to suggest that there is no God? And then the other question I have: has there ever been a successful society, successful civilization that eschewed spiritualism entirely? That was just strict, like no God, no nothing, just nuts and bolts. What's in front of you is all that exists. Has there ever been? I don't know. I really don't know. A society or a civilization that hasn't tried to reach out and try to define what's out there that's controlling things, and the spiritualness or the idea of a God, whether it's polytheism or monotheism. I wonder.
So, for the first one, I don't think that there's been too many that are direct, there can't be a gods. I think there's a few of them. I think the easiest one to bring up would probably be the one for the Christian God, at the very least, which would be, obviously, Pascal's wager. And that would, in a sense, logically prove that God couldn't be real if the Christian God is what they say is, which is omnibenevolent, all-powerful, and all-knowing.
Right.
So,
I think that's yeah.
Yeah, so that would be, and that would only be for the Christian God. I wouldn't say I have a way to do it against. There couldn't be a God in general. So I would go ahead and say, if there is one of those, I don't know, is a direct refutation.
It just seems interesting that that there's not really a lot of arguments with all the people that are saying, well, of course it's ridiculous. It can't. I don't really know of any argument that says no. You could believe everything the scientists tell you, Big Bang, they don't know quite what happened before that, etc. I don't think that the existence of God at this point, and I'm not big on science, but we kind of understand Einstein, even if we don't know what the hell E equals MC2. What the hell does the speed of light squared? I have no idea, but we have a sense of what that means. Little tiny things can have a disproportionate amount of energy released, and if you add it up, you make nuclear bombs. So, I get it, even without understanding it. And so I just wonder, and this is something I think that people say is kind of a critical, kind of derogatory, but I don't know that if God didn't exist, that we would have to invent him.
I think that it only makes sense to invent him when in the beginning of something like when we were coming into being Homo sapiens, and so it only makes sense to attempt to make sense of what's going on around you and creating and imagining that it's some great and powerful force that is nigh understandable and is beyond anything that we are.
Yeah,
That kind of just intuitively makes sense in the beginning because there's no explanation for things.
Okay, but how about this? I could argue that means it's more important now than ever, because Newton would tell you this. I think Einstein would tell you this, and I think the late what's his name, Hawking, Stephen Hawking would tell you the same thing, that Newton, for all the things he figured out, he raised more questions than he solved. And I think that Einstein would say that's true, and I think Hawking would say that's true. So I think we have more mysteries about things because we know more about what we don't know than ever before. I wouldn't suggest that we're any closer to understanding everything, because we understand what we don't know about everything more fully than we did last year or 100 years ago. You see my point?
I think that
Like, what have we actually figured out? What can you say that scientists have said? Yes, the Big Bang, and no, it's multiverse. I think there's
well,
more.
there are a few things that we've definitely like figured out. Like very recently, I mean, I'd have to pull up a full article to be entirely knowledgeable on it, but very recently, we as a human species have to look up exactly who did it. Made up a warp bubble for the first time.
We did what?
Is it a warp bubble?
A warp? Did you say wormhole?
Not a wormhole. We can't do that. We
A
accidentally
warp
created it.
bubble, moving matter through space by bending space-time itself rather than having conventional motion.
So is that something along the lines of proving quantum physics, kind of? Even though we know it's real, we don't know how. Is that along those lines?
It would be something similar. It would be the topic of quantum physics. Yes.
Okay, and also we've actually heard the thud of gravity for the first time. But really, I wouldn't say that we've like figured much out. I mean, really, in terms of really ultimately understanding. I think we're just as mystified
about it that I think the cool thing about it is that there is more to figure out and that we don't know it all. Instead of trying to ascribe that there's something that did everything and that we do know everything about everything from the get-go. And instead of trying to figure it out, we go, well, why does this work or how does this work? And we instead say, well, God.
Well, no, you could do both.
Okay, there has been both done, but when it comes to general understanding, a lot of people, when they come to it, they're like would be a lot more comfortable going, oh well, God did it, so okay, that's it, that's all I need to know about it. God did it, we're good.
Yeah, but that doesn't, I mean, I don't see any point there. That doesn't get me closer to saying, yeah, maybe God doesn't exist. I'm not
trying to get you.
No, I understand, but I mean, just because we don't know a lot of stuff, I don't think that saying, well, God must. In fact, it does make sense to say that, because if we go from Newton to Einstein to Hawking, and then 100 years from now, we're going to have more things we don't know. So it almost enhances the argument that, wow, things are even more complicated than we thought. There's even more possibilities. There might be a whole other set of physics that we don't even know about that don't comport with what we know. So to me, I think it almost, you could argue at least, that it makes more and more sense to believe. It makes more and more sense to believe in God than not to, in a sense. Do you disagree with that logic?
I would definitely disagree with that. That it makes
John, well, the problem.
If the idea of God is if the idea of God is try to explain mysteries of life, if we have like thousands of mysteries that we didn't even know existed, how does that not logically lead to, wow, yeah, God really must be a thing? I'm not saying that that's convincing, but I'm just saying, why wouldn't that be a logical, rational way to understand things, when it's like, wow, even from Stephen Hawking's death to now, we have more mysteries than we did before. That seems that it could easily both it.
I would really like to respond to that.
More mysteries. But
I'm done.
The reason that is a problem and not a reasonable assertion to make is because a couple hundred, maybe 1,000 years ago, we had the same conception that we do about how the universe initiated that we did to wind. We seen its phenomena, understood that it was a thing, but didn't understand how it functions. Now we have theories for thermal convection, particle physics involving air molecules, all that. We understand wind at a fundamental level beyond its power to interact. Do we wait long enough, it continues. Yes.
In other words, okay.
And like down to the level that we understand, like we understand how things function. Like wind breaks down at like the quantum level, the same way like that type of stuff breaks down. It's not like we understand wind. We get how it functions, why it happens, and where it works.
Okay. But we still have many more mysteries about other forms of physics, and, quantum and all the rest of it. So again,
real quick, guys, just 1 second.
But we've got like 10
meaning,
things
you can unmute by pressing the button at the bottom right of the screen next to the thumbs up, and then you should be able to talk. There we go. Yep, there you go.
So I just wanted to say, by the same token, we shouldn't, if you can't extrapolate the same theory for proposing God in that way backwards, you shouldn't do it forwards.
I don't understand.
Well, whether or not more questions have occurred or not, the point is, thanks to, all of these great scientists, we do have outcomes. At the end of the day, I don't care how many questions we have. Currently, our medical science and our medical data and our ability to do things has improved greatly, even though it came with a million questions. I don't really care. Practically, at the end of the day, all right, it has advanced us in our efficiency, in our ability, in our longevity as well. I don't understand the issue with more questions appearing. I don't see the problem with that. And what that has to do with,
in other words, okay, I'll restate it. If the idea of God, among others, but one is to explain the things that we don't understand. If there are more things, in fact, that we don't understand now than ever before in history, why would that mean that it's less likely and not more likely that God exists? Just as a logical kind of thought process. I'm not saying it proves God exists.
So before
if there's more things that we don't understand, like about quantum physics, we didn't even know that it was a thing until not all that long ago. We're only now beginning to understand it. So there's all these new mysteries, and with the most powerful.
You're asking why, when you learn more about something, you have more questions about it because you have more knowledge on what to ask.
If it's true that and this is true throughout history, that for every brilliant genius, what they do is they ask the right questions, they answer like however many X, and they raise like 100X questions, right? Einstein, Galileo, Newton. So if it's true that we constantly, because of these geniuses, they expand our vision, let's say, to new worlds that we didn't even know existed. So in other words, we don't know really. We're not really that much any closer. We figured out wind. Okay. But what I'm saying is we have so many things we don't understand about quantum physics, about so many things, that if we have at least as many, if not more mysteries, and that's what God was, let's say, either invented for, or that's why he exists, is we try to go look to God or some spiritual otherness to explain the mysteries. Well, we have more mysteries than we ever did. So I still don't get why you wouldn't think that, that it's just as likely, if not more likely, to believe in God, since we have as many or more mysteries now with all the advanced technology and computers we have than we ever did before.
What's the point? What's the point?
Hold on a second. Yeah. Oh, no, go ahead, Trav. You got it.
What's the point in giving another mystery as an answer to attempt to solve mysteries?
Well, I'm saying that if God is the idea of God, that people from cavemen to all throughout history to today, why is it true? Why is this happening? What is it about?
Yeah.
Whether it's physics or whether it's life,
because
or whether it's
Donald,
why are
we already have an understanding of this. I mean, I'm getting a lot of air from someone's mic. I don't know whose it is, but if you're not speaking, make sure you're muted. We see agency in things all the time that don't really have agency in an objective sense. Conceptually, we give them agency, like thunder and lightning. Oh, that's scary. That just felt like it shook my world, and huge flash of light. We give agency to it. The God of thunder and lightning. We understand this from an evolutionary sense, why we create these kinds of concepts of God, I heard you speak a little bit about the God of the gaps problem. If you think there's always going to be something beyond what we've been able to model in science. That's what we call the God of the gaps, fallacy, where you're just going to keep pushing God an extra step outside of where we've been able to look at objective reality. So, I think it's just, and the argument from ignorance fallacy is lingering here as well, where, just because we can't imagine, let's say something very simple like, infinite state of potential, when we get down to like, okay, what's that thing to solve the infinite regress problem? Many people feel as though it needs to be an agent of some kind, something that has some kind of meaning behind it, as opposed to just, basically an infinite quantum state of potential. So I think with regards to this stuff, if we don't have any proof, if we have no empirical evidence of something, we shouldn't believe that it exists in objective reality, like independent of human beings. Gods, as far as I can tell, are of the subject, meaning subjects need to create them conceptually, because in our way of understanding objective reality, we do that through the scientific method, and so far we haven't been able to unveil anything objective about any kind of gods. And there's been some amazing cultures that have been built around belief systems that don't have anything to do with God.
That exactly.
So
Well,
yeah.
here's my issue, and I felt like I was arguing this with Jack a little bit earlier. Is The question is, do we still need gods as a humanity? Comes along, someone says yes. You want to know why? Because it answers all the questions, even though doesn't prove anything, it doesn't do anything. It answers all the questions and it makes me feel better. Is that a good enough reason? I think that's completely subjective.
Yeah, in my version of that, I would go ahead and I would say it's not, but that's my personal view.
I don't think that's not my conception of God at all, that he answers any questions. I don't think that there's some, you guys are like saying, well, geez, they used to have gods of thunder. Well, people still believe in God now with all the knowledge we have, even scientists. So to use that example, it's like people have a lot more forward thinking. They know a lot more stuff.
Yeah, they know a lot more because we've discovered more, Donald, not because the theology got better. The theology had to adapt based on what we were finding. So it's like, okay, well, we find out that throwing human beings into the volcano is unnecessary because it's not really a volcano god in there that we're feeding. It's really just, molten lava and whatever else. So the more we peel that onion, getting closer to what actually is going on in reality, being able to measure things and build replicating models. The less people are relying on these, myths in order to hope to understand something.
Alrighty, so real quick, Donald, I'm gonna let you finish up there. I want to get to lexicon, and then I want meaning, and then Masha to speak because they haven't
my
gotten
point though is, and I don't think this has really been disputed here, when you realize that onion is a lot bigger, and there might be multiple onions that are way bigger than you thought. They have many more layers. So this idea that we're getting closer to figuring stuff out, I think is a preposterous idea. I think we know more questions, therefore we have more mysteries, not less. Nobody's disputing that.
That's not true, Donald.
Why?
That's argument ad absurdum.
It's argument ad absurdum, and then it's also look, and I think you really need to study. I think you really need to look at the Standard Model and talk to some physicists. We know a lot about reality, more than I think you believe.
Newton and Einstein and Hawking, and they will tell you that they brought into the culture more questions than they've answered. They all say that. This isn't me, like I'm some genius. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. This is what all they say. All the genius scientists will tell you that they raised more questions than they answered, and that's true going forward.
Yes,
so again, I don't think
individually. So
this is precisely why I was trying to avoid just calling it God of the Gaps, and I was trying to explain to you why that thought pattern was a problem. We didn't need God to explain wind. We understand wind now. So there's no reason to apply God in a situation unless you're no longer interested in figuring out the situation.
Was Einstein an atheist?
It doesn't need to be. And that's irrelevant to what
Einstein
I'm
was
putting
a
forward here.
Einstein was a
It's not
deist at
irrelevant
best.
at
But
all.
Donald, guess what?
Not irrelevant
You're
at
making
all,
an
but what you're
argument
trying
from
to do is
authority fallacy.
trying to like
Donald,
explain things
Donald,
like
Jack,
it's
can you
smarter
give
than
Donald a
because
mute? Like,
Einstein's
you
smarter
gotta
than
moderate
Man,
this, man.
man, no, I
Go
just
ahead.
didn't realize that I would have to do that today.
Yeah, well, let's keep.
No, it's
keep with it.
I got him done.
You know, you're engaging in the argument from authority fallacy. You can point to many people in history that have done the most brilliant things we could ever imagine, and some of them believed in witchcraft, in alchemy, in a whole bunch of shit that if the average person told you that they believed in it, we would think that they had lost their fucking mind. But that's you know, that just purely, Donald, since you've been in here, you've committed like 3 or 4 logical fallacies. You have about 30 more to go until you got the whole book.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and unforce mute Okay. But we would like if we could continue without talking over people and letting everybody get a shot in and not raising the volume when you're not being quote unquote listened to. Alrighty, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Yeah, he might not have something to say, but
all right, if that's the case, that's fine.
Just keep
Lexicon,
things going.
Did you have
here.
anything else that you wanted to say about that?
No, I explained my point, and I thought that it was unhelpful to just call something God of the Gaps, and that's why I was trying to come up with a scenario that explained it. That's all.
Gotcha. All right, well, if that's the case, then we can move on over to somebody we haven't heard from yet, Meaning. If you'd like to pop in, just go ahead and hit that button down there.
Oh, really? Captain Jack.
How's it going?
How's it going, man?
Going great.
It's
What's up, Trav?
James, Jack.
Hey, what's up, James? Oh,
James
yay.
B.
Let's do it. James.
It's been a while. It's been a while.
How you doing, bud? It's been a long time. Yeah, how are you, man?
Yeah, I'm doing, man. I'm actually reading Homer stuff right now. I just started the Iliad this week. So
Okay.
This is good. This is good stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So what do you think about the main topic here? And then we can go to what we've been talking about for a second. So does humanity need gods or not? Have we grown past the idea for it today? Or not?
That I don't have a clean answer for. I don't think I want to rely too much on God of the Gaps, for sure. So I think we've heard a few people kind of mention the idea that maybe God is that buffer between someone acting out their worst impulse or something like that. Which, okay, I'll grant. But overall, does humanity need gods or goddesses? And does the definition of God as an omniscient, omnipotent, all that fun stuff, right, change? And that is a question. So definitively, I don't have a clean answer. And what I would say is I think we still need some version of the highest ideal, right, which would be a god. Now, does that mean that the God is explaining a natural occurrence? Probably not, right? I think we've moved beyond that. It's no longer Thor or Zeus, as far as lightning and stuff like that is concerned. Now it looks to be more like maybe perennial patterns that are occurring throughout humanity, and that's where we see God, and that aren't going to be scientifically testable. And again, I don't think I can really get into an argument of can we prove God? No, we can't prove God exists. And if we believe that God interferes in our world, then there has to be some evidence or outlier or something to that effect that occurs in our empirical studies that point to that. Whether or not we catch it, I don't know. So I think it's a little bit of more of a ramble, But
It's a really,
overall,
I know it's not a direct answer and it's not like a concrete thing you've got nailed down, but I appreciate your answer there.
yeah, it's not a concrete topic unless you're coming in from a hard perspective, right?
Right. No, 100%. That's why I was like totally, I really like the answer there.
Yeah.
So let's see. Actually, I mean, like you covered all of the specs that would normally get talked about in this because I believe you've got a pretty good understanding of.
Yeah, I mean, the God of the Gaps is the kind of the big is going to be a big fault that you're going to run into, and when empirically, before what is it, Descartes' Cartesian break, there was multiple efforts to kind of what was natural, what was called natural theology, right, which is what we call science today, the study of the world, oddly enough, and that evolves into science. And then there was like regular theology and talking about the fan fiction side of God, right? And that in and of itself, uh, they're separate domains, and I think there's lots of evidence that when I say evidence, I mean people trying to close this gap. Aquinas has tried. I mean, shit, all the way back to Plato, because Plato and Socrates, they have the forms are beyond the world, right? The physical world. So it's an obstacle. It's a hard conversation to have. But overall, does humanity need gods or goddess or some higher ideal? Probably so.
So I'm all for the higher ideal thing. If we wanna take the concept of a divine God and kill it, and then maybe place it into a concept of higher ideals, I think that moving on to something like paragons would be interesting because not only would it be realistic and factual, but it would be true in aspects, and it wouldn't be
Well,
perfection in people. So like I would say is like in this case, Elon Musk would be a paragon of technology and industry, but that wouldn't mean he's perfect in every single way. That would mean that he was the one to be idealized when it comes to this type of industry and that type of technology, but
but
not
see,
that he
then
would
that
be.
wouldn't be a god at all, right? So
Well,
now
exactly.
it's
That's not exactly. I'm
yeah.
cool with it
So
not
you're
being a
pulling
god.
that into the hero realm. You're pulling it less into you're making an argument. It sounds like less from the god perfection realm to the hero realm, or the kind of
Yeah, the highest ideal for what we know about and can achieve. I feel like that would be a decent replacement for people in their minds if we still need that
well
higher up
well
ideal, because I don't believe that we need that higher up ideal in the first place, but it does seem like the conversation is that a lot of people want or believe that that higher ideal isn't going to go away. So if that's the case, I'll have to evolve to saying that I think that we could make that higher ideal something not only tangible, real, and explainable, but something that's still just as powerful in terms of a story, accomplishments, and shit like that. And I think that all of that could be the same, and we could replace this divine, higher ideal creator person behind.
I think what I would be cautious of, right, and this is just a minor critique, I think, in what you're saying, and I think to a point you're making sense, right? Because we need, I would say, real world examples that we can heroic actions that we can live up to, right? Now, the the way you phrased it, something tangible that we can live up to, something that we can achieve. Part of the ideal is something that we actually cannot achieve, right? It's in that pursuit that we take. It's like the adage, shoot for the moon, land amongst the stars. That you still need an ideal that is almost just outside of our grasp in order to work.
I think that I
I
think
agree.
that I don't know. I think that moving the bar literally just a little bit down and making it within grasp grants that for a lot more people in my mind, but I
Well,
could be wrong. I'm not 100% sure, but it definitely feels that way. Is it
I
Well,
I have to
over
agree with
time, people
you.
could achieve it. Hang on, Donald. Hang on. Over
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
people would achieve that, right? And then you would still have, like, the good news is you can still find heroes, right? But over time, you can hopefully, if you have a high enough ideal, that ideal will last longer than just that one hero. So then you have a string of heroes trying to achieve that ideal, which is outside of their grasp. And we're kind of in a different argument here.
None of it. I don't know where it becomes outside of their grasp, even though there's a string of these heroes. Because what it would be is that there would be. Well, the thing is that let's say, for instance, like I'm not exactly trying to like create this necessarily, but this is just an example. Let's say that there was somebody who was like decidedly, like after as many competitions as you could try and care to mention, was decidedly the best at like sculpting realistic art, like lifelike sculptures.
Mm-hmm.
So they become the paragon of these incredibly of that type of art. They're the paragon of realistic sculptures. They are the ideal you need to live up to become great. And if you surpass them, you will become the next person to look up to ideally. But that person could last for 1,000, 10,000 years. There's no reason that they couldn't. And just because another person would come to replace them is actually a good thing, because it shows adaptation to the future versus concrete ideals that are generally set to be in stone for forever, no matter what we find.
Well, hang on. So this is where I think we're really going off topic here. If you don't, and I may have misphrased this, and what I'll just say here is that when you have the ideal of ideals, right, or the aim of all aims, right,
Mm-hmm.
there's no guarantee that people are going to get to that goal. And when I said you have a string of these heroes who achieve these goals, right, or probably what I should have said was you have a string of heroes attempting to achieve this and at some level failing. Because and it's in that I think that you have your tangible idea, the tangible idea of people are flawed, right? So let's take the United States, for example. Regardless of whether or not you what your political beliefs are, the founding fathers at some level in their documents, and we can read this, set out on an experiment to effectively create its own ideal country that we have struggling to live up to. And we've had lots of great examples of that, but also we've had lots of great failures in that. And so it's that ideal that we continue to strive for that we may actually never physically reach.
The only difference in I think what you're talking about and that and I'm talking about that is I'm putting the bar somewhere that you can reach.
Yeah, and that's where exactly.
I think, and I don't think that the motivation difference is large enough for it to matter in that sense. I just maybe we just disagree there, but I don't think the motivation for people in that case. I mean, honestly, to me, it would be more motivating, at least under my understanding, that another person was capable of doing this. I can certainly fucking do it, so I can be just as good, if not better, than this person. And that would drive me just as hard. Like, of course, we're all mortal. I can be better than him if I just try harder.
Yeah, no,
so I feel like that motivation is just as strong, if not stronger, than, well, this is an ideal that I'll never achieve, so let me get as close to it as I can. I feel like that also kind of is more like, at least in my eyes, it's a little more depressing than the one I'm suggesting. But
any more than it's not depressing that Sisyphus goes back for another rock every time. So what you're talking about,
that's a curse.
Yes. Well,
that's him living in hell. That's not just something he chooses to do.
But the idea is it's the curse that makes it. It's similar. It's related to what Meaning's saying. Is that it's not a question of figuring out the way to get that rock over the edge. It's just figuring out like how to keep struggling even in the face of more rock, not like how we've achieved the epitome. And plus, if you think about planet Earth or the universe, it don't need humans. So what you're talking about is very much, I think, a wonderful ideal for the Olympics or for for
the Earth can't need anything.
Right. Well, the Earth doesn't need humans. So all the things that I think
the Earth can't need something though.
You're
ascribing anthropomorphism to this Earth just to try.
I'm not ascribing anything to anything. Please don't complicate what I'm saying. All I'm saying is, if you take all the humans off the planet, Earth will get along just fine. So I don't think there's anything involving the God thing that has anything to do with like a paragon. I don't know. Do lions or do bears think about the paragon bear? I think that you're making it very human. I think it's way beyond humans, and I agree with meaning. There has to be that unattainable level, that other, for anything to fully make sense. I think people need that. And let me just ask this question because I don't know the answer, and I'll shut up again. Has there been a successful civilization that was just devoid of either God or gods or a spirituality and just was a plain scientific with no spirituality whatsoever? I don't know the answer to that. Has there been just a logical, whatever science was at the time, society in civilization, or has every civilization that we know about had some form of like spiritual otherness or God or gods involved in their sanity?
Some form, yeah. I imagine some form.
I mean, can anybody?
I imagine that. I imagine that it's not 100% throughout all of history. And somewhere, I imagine that there was probably a 0.01%
We know
of
about a lot
somebody
of
doing some shit.
civilizations. We know about the Mycenaeans and the Egyptians and the Eskimo. So if there hasn't been one yet, it's a pretty convincing argument that it's pretty necessary. I'll leave it there.
I would disagree.
Well,
it's an argument that they're necessary. I think it's again.
No, but argument to this point.
Imagine. Oh, hold on a second. What was that?
I'll say it for Travis. You can't get an ought from an is.
Oh well, there you go.
Well, then that's kind of where I think we start dealing with the God question, and does humanity need gods or not? Because that's a huge ought area.
But nobody can name one civilization that you guys have ever heard of.
Buddhism and Jainism.
Oh my God!
Buddhism
yes, we can
and
name
Jainism.
many.
There's so many. Let's get on Google, folks. So
Yeah,
Donald,
I'm saying I'm literally popping up on Google right now.
Travis literally started the show listing them.
Yeah. I started the show. Listen, and maybe Donald wasn't here, but Donald, just get on Google. Quick Google search. You're gonna find Buddhism deals with more the way to be. There's no.
That's Taoism.
Or Taoism. Sorry. But
I think Donald might misunderstand the question there. This is about God or gods, not about religion.
Also, I think you might have missed Donald's question. Has there ever been a society that doesn't have the God thing in it? Buddhism does, because it comes out of a society that had that conception.
And so does the Tao.
Well, can I answer that?
Actually, yeah, go ahead, Masha. We haven't heard from you yet.
Okay, yeah. So pre-capitalist matriarchal civilizations just in Africa that didn't practice any sort of theism, but they did venerate their ancestors. So that includes Nigerian Zazu, Sudanese Kandake, Angolan Nzinga, and Ashanti of Ghana. So that's just one continent. So there you fucking go.
Did they think their ancestors' spirit was still with them, or did they know that they were
No,
just dead?
it's a veneration of one's ancestors insofar as they provided you with like all of the, I'm sure that this is a concept, they didn't have the concept of genetics, right? But they had the concept of something that is given to them in the sense of ancestral memory, which we now know scientifically is factual.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. So there has been civilizations that really devoid of any kind of real spiritual thing, or just nuts and bolts, whatever reality had in front of them, and that's it, without a lot. Okay. I stand
No,
corrected.
not nuts and bolts. Like they had complicates.
Leads to my question.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
How far did those civilizations go?
At all, or are you? Oh, is that the end of the question? There, is it?
No. I mean, I'm trying to yes and Donald here.
Oh,
he was
okay.
asking, were there any successful civilizations that were devoid of the God principle? And you can name some, and some of them kind of existed in their corner of the world. Some of them for an extended period of time, but how many of them actually, have some kind of hegemonic power over their neighbors, or
is that what a successful civilization is, though?
No, I'm just asking the question. I'm not telling you what I think is a successful.
Like they lived to old age, and they managed to have a infant survival rate that surpasses modern U.S. statistics. So how about that for a indicator of how successful the civilizations? I'm not sure why we're getting I don't know. I find these traps laid by Donald really dissatisfying. You
I'm
know,
not
I don't know
trying to
why
say
we're indulging him, right? Like
Well,
he
this is
first he
well.
asks
This
us
is
to
this
prove
is
a
well before.
negative.
no,
Well, I
I'm
mean,
asking
to
honest
be fair, this
questions.
is that for the most part, this is a
That's not fair.
free speaking.
I'm not
For a
doing that
second,
at all.
this is a free. This is an area where we are allowed to all speak our positions and stuff like that. I don't like to stifle anybody unless they're getting too rowdy or overbearing. And for the most part, besides the one time that we had a problem, Donald was doing all right. So
I have no agenda
until
other
he
than
goes
trying to
until
learn.
something like that happens again, unless he's going completely out of nowhere using intentional bad faith argumentation too consistently, then he's going to be allowed to speak.
I just wanted to say I'm going to drop you guys a study.com piece, really easy read, about the non-theism of Hinduism, Buddhism, and Confucianism. Just so you guys can get a little more information on some of these more major religions that
Confucianism, I wouldn't classify as a religion, though. I'd classify it as a philosophy. I mean, Confucius wrote on ritual as far as public civil rituals and stuff like that. I'd push back pretty hard on that.
Yeah,
I
I
mean, if
mean,
you want to cite it, that's
it seems like most religious historians put it in the non-theistic religion category.
Yeah. And we're
Okay,
a lot
so
of people that were
I feel
confused,
I feel
also
actually kind of bad real quick.
animistic.
One right after
They'll-
Jeffrey. Go ahead and
Yeah, so
finish up.
Yeah, I wanted to get sort of Donald's question kind of leads to my question, which is it's kind of in between some of the other things that have already been discussed. So let's say, Jack, and I just want to phrase this sort of as a question for you
Sure.
for a thought experiment. Let's just
Gotcha.
say you did solve all of the hardest problems of philosophy and morality, and
Sure.
and you wanted to pass that down to future generations. So that people could treat each other the best way possible for, let's just say, all of humanity to thrive into the future. You and all the best philosophers got together. We all figured it out.
Okay.
And let's just say that's done. Okay, we figured it out. What's the best way for you to relay that knowledge to all future generations of human beings?
Art.
I would expand on that and just I would say a form of culture, but yeah, like I would you would bake all of that information into your culture and what you do.
Yeah, like
And-
Plato's ideal forms, for an
Right.
example.
So I would suggest that that you think long and hard about how do you communicate to somebody that's far in the future and who might have a totally different set of circumstances and who might have a totally different set of resources available to them for educating their children, and who might have a totally different IQ than you. They might be smarter, they might be dumber. Actually, if you took a survey of the IQs of the people in the room, probably we're more than a standard deviation above average in this room. So you can't imagine, I don't think you should imagine that the people that you're trying to teach how to be are going to be as smart as you. I think probably more than 2/3 of them are going to be much less intelligent than you and can't go through the mental exercises that it takes to figure out all of the ins and outs of philosophy. So I think that, to think about whether religion or not religion in general.
What happens
or God
when
or
a goalie
gods
needs to use
are
the bathroom
necessary?
in the
I would say that there is a variety of different strategies that people take to teach their children how to be.
Fair
And
enough.
one of them is to scare them with sky daddies.
See, and I think that I think we could get past that one though.
I know we would all like to believe that we can get past that one, but actually there's an ongoing struggle to get past that, right? People have been trying to get past these things for a long time. And it turns
Trav, real
out
quick, I apologize.
actually,
I apologize there 1 second. Hey, Trav, can you take over real quick? I gotta go use the restroom. I can't.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Dula. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's there are multiple strategies that different populations of people are using to educate their children. Some people have a very high energy strategy where we require our children to go to school go to church on Sundays, and they're not done with their education until they're 29. And there's other times and places where people barely live to be 40, and they absolutely cannot afford to take those kinds of resources into teaching their children about morality. You got to get the 80% solution by the time you're 12, because that's when you need to start working. And whether we're in an ice age and it really is a struggle to survive from the earliest age you can start working, or if we're like now where there's plenty of food and everyone can go to college until they're 18, or school until they're 18, and some of the better well-off countries can have almost all their people getting free college education because we just have that much resources. Like that's not realistic to assume that throughout the whole future, and well, even just looking at the past more than a couple hundred years ago, that we have that kind of resources to dedicate to letting people sit there and do thought experiments to discover the correct morality.
Would you consider
I think there needs to be both of these systems coexisting, and the one that's more appropriate for the time will grow, and the one that's not will shrink. But they won't go away.
Yeah,
they shouldn't.
Would you consider that like a metaphorically conservative perspective? Like, because you seem to want to, you're worried about losing the good ideas, right?
I'm incredibly worried about losing the good ideas. I think keeping the good ideas around is one of the hardest things, especially when you have, the ability to burn books, or let's just say we start doing everything on computers. How hard is it going to be to keep the ideas the first time there's a global power outage and people just aren't into computers anymore?
I think your concern is reasonable to address, and I think there's a survivalistic way to respond to it, and that might be kind of what we've done with religions, where let's find the most effective way to do it, to pass this on that we think will be the strongest meme, let's say, but let's not worry so much about whether the claims, like let's say the claims that these religions make or these stories make, let's not worry too much about whether those are actually true or not. Let's focus more on the effectiveness of what we can create in the mind of the
sure. Well, yeah, well, sure. I mean, I think the truer the better, but sometimes you have to tell stories, like especially when you say we should pass on our knowledge with art, right?
Yep. I argue, and
how do you know how that's going to get interpreted?
Well,
2,000 years from now.
Well, when I say art, I mean I'm putting scriptures. I'm an atheist. I'm putting all scriptures that have ever been written into the art column, right? And like I said, I think if Shakespeare wanted to start a religion or call himself the Second Coming, I think perhaps he would have kicked off a new religion because of the power of his art. I'm not saying that the Bible isn't one of the most gory, action-packed, horrific, with some romance stories that has ever been written. It's
absolutely boring.
Yeah, some boring shit. Hey, I played Jesus and Godspell. I know all about it. But
real quick, so
yeah.
I want to.
So basically, the summary of my point, Jack, is that you need a God to teach an 80 IQ person 10,000 years from now in the middle of an ice age not to kill his neighbors.
I think we can use the same concept placement that you're talking about in someone's head to talk about a non-divine, non-magical, realistic person that can be viewed for their faults and for their attributes that were fantastic. I think you could do that, and it could be the same type of thing, and I don't think it would be any much different than this divine type of God. But I do, that's the conclusion of my point. But I do want to get Masha actually in, because I want to know her, answer is, or her, stances on does humanity need gods or not, because she actually hasn't answered that, and I haven't had time for it yet. So, does humanity need gods or not at all? Have we grown past it? Is it useful to have them?
I mean, I want to provide like a more lighthearted answer, if that's all right.
Okay,
Like
no, that's
we
fine.
kind of
Yeah.
got into it here. I just want to quickly answer Snark about, like if you didn't have something to fear, you wouldn't have morals. Well, I mean, obviously the counter argument there is if the only reason that you don't murder is that you're afraid of God, you probably aren't moral, right? Like there's reasons not
Here.
to be. Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
agree
So
pretty
yeah.
wholeheartedly.
And
Can I
also
say a
if
quick thing? You
What-
could also say God told me to kill you.
right, yes,
And
yeah,
and
it
and
provides
and
its
it's
own
and it's
justification.
he and your children, and he told me that it is the utmost importance, so you could, like, who knows if it's God or not, but I mean, guys hearing God in his head, right, and he hates you,
I
so
agree.
he'd
Yeah,
kill
I
you.
think
He'd probably kill you anyway.
Damn, I don't have an answer to that. I don't have an answer to that sentence. If the only reason you're not killing someone is because you're afraid of God, you're not moral. That's a very powerful argument.
Right?
Right?
Yeah. And I think that there's a more enduring.
enduring.
Oh shit! I can hear myself. Can someone mute or whatever? Yeah, thanks. There's a more enduring like basis or foundation for morality that comes from reason, which is a much more pro-social impulse, right? Like if you can be shown the like intellectual, or not even necessarily intellectual, but the basically pro-social, like the self-interested aspect of why you shouldn't behave poorly in society, which is that society might exclude you, might decide to stop feeding you, etc. Right? Like that's, that as a basis for morality, being reason rather than emotion, rather than religion, is much more enduring.
It is a bit of a tangent, but that is what I was gonna get at. Is you definitely need fear to stop people from just murdering willy-nilly, but you'll find that fear at almost any level of life. You don't necessarily need to hypothesize a god for it to exist. Most animals in nature, if they think there is absolutely no danger posed to themselves and they are presented with a threat, they will kill it.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's any level of threat, whatever, the typical response is an abundance of caution.
What do you think the Buddhist monks are afraid of?
If they're fully Buddhist, I would imagine that they're not really afraid of technically anything. I mean, I assume that they have.
They would still be afraid of failing.
Well, they're terrified of women.
Are they actually scared of it? Are they actually scared of them, or are they just
yes, because we're the Mara, we're like the entangling illusion, right? That pulls on their libido. Yeah,
Well,
yeah, they're terrified. Actually,
did not know
beautiful girls get murdered, brutally tortured yes, in Tibet. It's a common like ritual to destroy a beautiful female body to show these young monks like, no, this is degrading. It's degraded.
Do you think they fear? Is that fear, Masha, or is that just hatred or bigotry? Or...
I mean, the two are very entwined emotions, right?
Sure, they're close.
Fear leads to hatred, Travis.
Yeah.
Yoda said this.
Hatred leads to the dark side.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to think of like what the primary drive is there. Like if if someone goes out hunting a rabbit, or let's say they go rabbit hunting and it's not for food, why are they hunting?
For the fur?
For the
maybe not fundamentally for the pleasure of doing so. So yes, the monks are doing this for the pleasure of doing so. But is this a pleasurable pursuit running from fear, or is it pleasurable pursuit because they might think that women are dangerous to others, or I'm just not clear on what the actual justification given is.
Well, they think beautiful women cause them to become more entangled in the illusion, right? Like that they're trying to transcend this level of being, right?
So how come I see
someone might say failing.
Like when
and
I
women represent a danger of failing in their path to enlightenment.
Pursuit of enlightenment.
Yes.
So yeah, they're afraid of failing that. That's something that I didn't know about though, and makes me not like Buddhist monks.
Now, when
Well,
you
there's
say
a lot of
like I know monks, and I know there's monks who like don't support the slaying of women, right?
I would hope so.
Of
Yeah.
course,
Yeah,
of
yeah.
course.
I would
But I
hope
mean,
so.
Tibet
So
has
we should
very
clarify that
successfully
a little bit.
created a kind of client state, like inside of the U.S., right? Out of its kind of like hippie elite class, right? Like that's what Tibet is good at. That's why China has been trying to like, you know, kind of like repress them, because that's the entire country is based on that model of creating client states so that they can support a class that has there's no productive value to them, right? Think about that. Like they have slaves. They have many slaves that work just to feed the monks, whose sole job is just to try to achieve that transcendent enlightenment. Yeah.
Cultivation, very important.
Mm-hmm.
This goes so much deeper than I was aware with Buddhism.
Anyway, so I want to answer your original question.
I just want to listen to
about
Marcus
humanity.
Christian
Do they need gods or not?
Okay. Yes,
Does
yes.
humanity
But humanity needs many small gods. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with the writing of Terry Pratchett, but he wrote about a goddess, the goddess Anoia. So she's the goddess of things that get stuck in drawers. So I think like those are the gods that we need, right? Like we need little gods that we can relate to. Like
amazing.
yeah, we need the god of the local river so that we don't piss him off by polluting it. We need, that's the kind of thing we need.
I mean,
all insults on purpose. Fuck that
I don't
god.
feel like any of that's untrue. I don't feel like any of what she said is untrue. I just also feel like it could be accomplished.
Yeah, I mean, are they
without the god?
Do they have to be? Do they have to be
think it was
gods?
good.
I mean, I feel like
no, they don't.
I feel like when we create gods out of things, we just we get so attached to them that when a better idea, like a better moral idea, might come along, like people have the hard time giving up their new like sky friends, instead of sky daddy.
Well, that's why monotheism has the whole like economy of belief totally backwards, right? Like gods depend on us to believe in them so that they can gain power. And not like potentially metaphysically, but like, conceptually as ideal forms or as persistent kind of like thought viruses or whatever, right? So this whole idea, like they should be trying to kiss our ass, not demanding that we, like completely, degrade ourselves with their worship.
It depends whose ass you want your scripture to kiss or your subjects to kiss, right? Because a lot of like, if you are some like, senseless virgin, whatever male, and you write down the Bible as is, you're gonna probably feel that it's kissing your ass to some degree.
And that's also what happened with the Bible, right? It went through many thousands of iterations before there was the printing press. Those virgin monks who really hated and feared women, would like completely change passages, right? And left out the Gospel of Mary Magdalene and turned her from a Judaic princess into a whore. So yeah, it's a problem.
Isn't believing in God about
painted...
power? Isn't believing in God kind of also about power? It's like, I'm closer to, I'm more moral, I'm more superior. I speak to God, I'm closer to God, so therefore, it's kind of like you yourself is God, right? Because
absolutely.
God talks to me. Who the fuck are you? He just told me to do. He just told me that you're to do this and you're to do that. It's like, can't argue with that.
yeah,
That's
theism
God.
is a brain worm
That's
that
God's will.
degenerates one's ability to reason. So
Yeah.
it's
Well,
actually a
hey,
profoundly antisocial pursuit. And proselytizing is imperialism. Raising children in an organized church is emotional abuse because you're raising them on the foundational tenet that they're born from sin, that they're evil, and they need to like continue to try to work their way into the good graces of an omnipotent and rather hateful and violent sky daddy, right? It's all bad as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
hmm.
And
So,
I
if
think
you
that's
put
not
it back
very
into
functionally
Vatican,
different from being a failing, floundering mere mortal who has not attained enlightenment. Like, you're born flawed and you must seek this greater state of being.
and then on top of that, it could be instantly. I mean, it's not just religion, right? This can be attributed to cult leaders. It can be attributed to the state. It can be attributed to any number of things. It's not just a god or a theistic tradition.
that's the thing. I
All
don't.
of these things can be
I'm more
applied
interested in the
to
psychology
Let him
everything.
of
finish,
believing.
Nivik. Let him finish, Nivik.
Everything that we're talking about can be applied to a cult leader, to a charismatic figure, to any number of things that a God belief is not required at all.
Yeah, that's the thing. I was always interested in the psychology of the reason for that, and why that is that people want to have a belief in something mythical.
Has
Well,
any
I mean, there's a lot of reasons. I think the most basic reasons generally are fear.
I mean, anyone can generate fear. I mean,
I just think
not take this down to this.
generally. Well, I think it's just generally fear when it comes to most religions.
I mean, it could be generally fear if you want to dehumanize your opponents because you're now at war with them. I mean, any number of factors can occur here that you don't need a god.
I
Yeah,
mean,
and
like it could be your ego. You can say, "Hey, I don't want to. I don't. I'm a ruler. I don't want to be looked at as wrong. I'm just saying God said so. Shit. That fixes that. And the
Well, I
higher
mean, it
being
could just
said
be
it.
I
So you
said
can.
so. It doesn't have to be God said so. It could just be
Well,
I said so.
it is really you, but you're
No,
gonna say it's
hang on,
God because it's
no,
more
I don't. No, you
palatable.
don't have to do that. You can just sit here and say, I am the paragon of this belief system, or I am the paragon of this ideal that we are all choosing to achieve. You must follow me if you wish to achieve enlightenment or whatever the case may be, right? And if you do not do the steps that I ask you to do, whether it's slinging children onto the killing fields in Cambodia, to Jews in the Holocaust, it doesn't matter. Wherever you want to go with this, a person without a God belief is completely capable of doing that, and without invoking God.
capable, but is it as
Alright.
effective? Like, something
So-
you're missing with the Paragon versus a god is the ability of the person listening to the Paragon or listening to a god, their ability to lie to themselves and convince them that this is possible and reasonable.
So
A Paragon
I
doesn't
would-
have the same draw as invoking God.
I would argue it doesn't really matter at the individual level, man. And it can go either way.
You're right. It doesn't matter.
No,
People will just
no,
be
it does
the way
matter
God.
though. If you're a king and you're trying to raise an army to go fight France, if you say, I'm the best king that's ever lived, I'm an amazing tactician, let's go to fucking war, hell yeah, you're gonna get a different number of soldiers than if you say, I was handpicked by God to do this. You're gonna get a very different number of soldiers, and that
Potentially.
different number of soldiers is gonna play a big role in whether or not you actually succeed in those conflicts.
Potentially. I mean, we have a group of people who firmly believe in any number of things that don't require a God and are going to it in droves. So, I mean, I would be
I don't
very
mean to
careful
interrupt
to
you,
say
meaning
you
real
don't need God.
Listen, I don't mean to interrupt you real quick. Donald, are you able to speak, or are you muted, or are you able to talk?
Yeah, I'm just waiting because
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. I took up
a lot of floor time earlier, and I thought, well, let me show I can be as good a listener as a talker.
We want to hear from you, Donald. You're very interesting, and I'm glad you're here.
Well,
yeah, no, I just wanted to make sure that you wanted to get in if you wanted to get in, but I didn't know if there was a problem with the mics or not. You're good. If you want to wait still, you can wait.
Yeah, I'll wait another minute because I want to go back from religion back to a concept of God that I find interesting, but so I'll wait a minute.
Can I hop in to agree with Lex real quick? Because like one of the other things that organized religion does is that it like defers the reward until your afterlife. So you can be told to go through any amount of shit in your physical, material, current, like embodied life, like be a soldier for whatever army or be like working class, getting ground up in a factory, but you're doing it to get into heaven. And that's when your reward will come. Like later on.
You can do it to usher in the communist revolution and the utopia that comes on the other side of that.
However, here's the thing.
The same thing would
we
apply.
know for a fact that soldiers that believe in a deity have a higher chance of survival. Believing that this isn't the end-all be-all in your life allows you to do crazier shit with a faster response time. It just does.
So it's not a deity.
To me, it sounds like you're saying, I don't like, this is not harsh whatsoever, like at all. It sounds like to me, if, from my perspective anyway, if we lie to people, they'll fight harder and die for us because they believe that there's something great at the end of the tunnel that we can't actually guarantee them. Even if that's the truth, I find it so disingenuous. I wouldn't want it to be a part of my society.
Oh no, I agree. I mean, that's completely fair. But I'm just saying,
it's such a like. I know. I get the point you're making too. It's just from my perspective that how disingenuous that is, just as a whole, to people. You know what, I find it's not all right.
Yeah, but it's so counterintuitive. But you know what, Jack? And I like to look at logic. I look at everything through logic. But then at the end of the day, I have to say logic doesn't explain everything. So, what about the stuff that seems illogical? The Puss in Boots story. Yes, believing in those magic boots made a difference. Without believing in those boots, even though they weren't magical, made a difference. There's a story when I was supposed to be a little entrepreneur, right? ran into a family friend, a childhood friend. He was real smart, like I was in grammar school. And I was doing a magazine. I looked up entrepreneurs. There's a point in most corporations or any endeavor where it's like you're losing a nickel a widget and you say, we'll make it up in the volume of widgets. And it's illogical. There has to be a lot of times that hope against hope when all seems illogical. And yet having that belief and having that faith in and of itself can matter.
Those stories, though, aren't the ending of all of those types of stories, though, that you could do it all along like yourself and you didn't need the magic thing and it was just to boost your confidence and that the person was just deceiving you to help you out for a second? Like, it just goes to show that was inside of you all along anyway. So I don't... Okay. The only thing is that is the delivery device. So my question is why does a delivery device have to be a lie?
Well, here's why. Because here's your Paragon thing, which kind of bolsters that argument. Then I'll be quiet again. Roger Bannister, I believe it was, he broke the 4-minute mile. They've been reaching it close. As soon as he reached it, tons of guys reached it because it was a psychological barrier. So it's a similar thing, even though it's intangible. Once a psychological, if you can get over it in your mind and believe that it's doable. Well, nobody believed it was doable until someone did it. So I know it's a different thing, but it's kind of like the Puss in Boots. Yes, I honestly think that someone who didn't have the boots, even though they had nothing but leather, actually did achieve what they didn't think they could accomplish. That without believing in those phony, crappy boots, they would not have achieved it. Absolutely, I believe that's true.
See, I just think of the way I think I think a lot of that could be changed just by the way people are taught. The way we could go up, we can easily go about teaching people that just because, like, wow, this man has a 4-minute mile, that's incredible, but it does not for anything mean that you can't, if you try hard enough, surpass that. And that would be the type of people. One of the interesting things about a society, at least in my mind, with the Paragon structure, would be there would be like constant competitions to see who could be a Paragon in almost every category. So you'd always have people trying to strive to be the next ideal for other people. That means that whatever category people are going to be trying to do that in, they're trying to be the best people that they can be for that. So I think that works in just fine without having to have a God concept in there like you guys are talking about.
But Jack, whether or not the God's concept is providing a nocebo or a placebo, I don't care which of the two. It doesn't matter. It's still providing an effect that is having a psychological and physiological response to those who believe it. And that tiny difference can make the difference in the end.
That is to any belief, though, lexicon.
Yeah, that's true. I'm just saying that is the utility of the God concept whether or not that is still necessary is the question.
Right. I not only think that, but I think that it can be done without invoking that specifically. I think it could be done invoking a paragon. I think it's very much possible. But so
Well,
maybe not
in the moment, probably not, right? It depends on in the moment, because I mean, at certain times things could be more complicated than people understand, and if they're
Yeah,
gonna
history
They're
really
not,
doesn't parse
well,
that
the
out.
thing
they're
is,
gonna
they're
take
not
on a
looking.
challenge.
They're not looking for like. They're not looking at these people for like answers to things. They're not. The only thing is to say that they do this in an ideal way. They are the ideal for this concept. The rest of them is human, and they have just as human story going on about them as anything else would.
To be fair, first, I don't know if anyone's heard this before, but first we fought the cold, then we fought the sky, then we fought the animals, then we fought each other, and then we fought for gods, then we fought for kings, then we fought for gods again, and we haven't found something better. No, then we fought for ideology, and we haven't found something better since. I think there's still a large portion of the world today that's still at the fighting for God stage, and I don't think it's going away anytime soon. At least another 5 generations.
It wouldn't be there if it wasn't for a reason. I mean, if to figure out how to rid
I
it.
would disagree. I would disagree that something wouldn't be there just because there's not a reason. You could take that on like an evolutionary level, and there's like mutations that shouldn't, that don't help at all or are completely irrelevant to something.
But once again, I think the distinction from gods to kings and back to gods, and it was really kings backed up by gods. I think the reason for that we didn't go from kings immediately to ideology was because the paragon tactic didn't work. It sort of worked. Like, you got people who are loyal, but it just can't. It just doesn't have the same impact as saying almighty force, motherfucker. Like,
Well,
that's just,
where are you getting?
it hits people different.
Okay,
Jack, I agree with you. I'd like to understand like how to get rid of. I don't.
Let's get James or meaning. What was your challenge to lexicon?
Seems
there?
like is Masha trying to go? Or you?
Yeah, I'm trying to ask a really important question. Lex, who did those things? Who fought the sky? Who fought, etc., etc.? Who did?
Oh, no! I completely agree. I'm not.
But do you know what I'm
disputing that
saying?
it's been humans all the way down, 100%.
No, what do you agree
those
with?
humans, I agree with what you're saying in that God was not necessary as a concept, from a logical perspective, but from the personal, emotional perspective of the people, I think they would have failed without that concept being present, because it was providing them that very slight edge. The people throughout history who have built up this.
But like, let's be specific. Men. We're describing male usurpation, right, of female power. Do you know where circumcision comes from? It has nothing to do with cleanliness. Do you know why priests wear robes?
I get the point you're making, but
do you know that they used to cut their dicks
for other people
in a river so that they could simulate bleeding?
Yeah, I'm aware.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's very difficult to throw your life away for the survival of the pack, whether you're male or female. Having the ability to lie to yourself is extremely useful. It allows you to act with more confidence than anything else.
I totally disagree.
Pretty hard.
Interesting.
Yeah, wait, hang on, Jack. Let's get James. You had something there.
I mean, I would push back on people will die for the pack depending on how close they are to the pack, because it's through the relationships, right, that would matter. We don't need a God belief to want to protect our children.
Exactly.
Typically speaking, it's more of a biological drive. But
when the pack is expanded beyond the family unit, that's where it starts to become a thing. Like the hardest fighters.
Grand narratives.
Yeah. This is an overarching thing that just provides that slight edge. The God-fearing driven army.
Is your mic okay? One second.
Is it me?
What?
Yeah, hold on one second. Just mute and then unmute real quick and see if it resets.
It won't. I'm heading out. I just changed internet.
Oh, there we go.
That's
better.
Why.
There you go.
You're good.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Way better.
Well, So it's just the God-fearing driven army had a tendency to slightly outperform the paid mercenary or the drafted quickly for fight for your leader army, because it improves a general sense of morale. And those
No,
societies
it's
that were
cohesion. It's actually cohesion. It's
That's
like
cohesion.
uniforms.
Well,
like the
morale and
reason
cohesion
uniforms.
are drawn from each other. But yeah, so what I'm saying is that sense of cohesion is still useful. I still think it exists, and I don't think you can't draw it from a paragon. We know that, like, almost factually, purely because gods made a resurgent. We tried paragons for about 300-year period in medieval times, and all of those paragons had to go back to I was ordained by God, and it just drives people differently. Yeah, you can have, like, I think what I'm trying to get at here is you can have an instinctual I fight for my family response, but for the person who doesn't have that available, the I will fight for what I think is right on X basis response can sort of fill in for it, and the easiest to grasp conception of that would be the God scenario. I'm fighting
is
for
this
what
the
is right in
Will
that way.
is this the Will Smith argument?
Oh shit!
I don't understand what you're saying. All I'm trying to get at here is being able to lie to yourself and say that this thing exists and I am fighting for it gives you an advantage over I'm fighting because I'm here. I was paid.
What I would sit
It's
here
just not the
and
same.
push back. Yeah, I just disagree with you on too many levels, Lex. And I don't know if you've served. I don't know if you have that experience or not. Typically, so here's how I would break this down. I think you're right to a point where people would join for a cause or join because of maybe a God belief. I'll grant that, I think, to a degree, right? But when you measure the fighting ability, that's entirely based off of the relationships within the units. That's driven by interrelationships at the local level during a firefight, and it's moving less and less and less and less and less away from a religious perspective that I haven't seen.
Oh no, for sure. I agree that it is slowly dying, but
it's very dead in that regard. Like there's not as much of a religious
for the U.S.
perspective.
military and modernized militaries.
Okay.
General Butt Naked is still invoking to his child soldiers that they are invincible if they strip down and follow him because he is divinely ordained to lead battle in Africa.
And so
or I think
then
he
that
stopped
makes
that in the late 80s.
That makes them better fighters, or because then training.
No, it doesn't. It just makes them more
fighter.
willing, and if you're more willing, you have a faster response time to somebody who's hesitating and freaking out.
Okay,
it's just a different mental state.
And then you know that I would take this to another area as well, and to say that an ideology can provide the same thing, right?
Yeah, like look at right now, the Russian soldiers who are Orthodox Christian, so Byzantine Christianity, are fighting really successfully next to Chechen Muslim soldiers, right? Like Kadyrov's battalions. And that they're definitely not united by a common belief.
For sure.
As I want to take this time real quick in the middle of a break for everybody that's listening and talking right now, thank you guys for listening and calling in. I want to encourage anybody that's listening to call in if they've got their own ideas they want to chip in or chime in about this. We accept, we'll accept anybody. Come on in. We'll throw you in as a speaker or a caller, and you can have, your say up in here as well. We'd really love to hear your take on just about anything that we've covered here so far. I can't wait to talk about this some more because honestly, I'm getting a lot of interesting feedback, and I didn't even realize up until honestly this conversation that I had that Paragon ideal until we started talking about it, and now I'm actually cementing it as we're going along in a strange way, and I'm kind of in more of an agreement with that being that kind of higher archetypal looking forward towards thing.
For now, Jack.
We can cut out that higher archetypal type of thing. That way we can take away the divine mystical aspect of that and transplant it with, realistic, and logical.
One more thing, guys.
Realistic expectations.
One more thing, guys, to everyone in the room. Nivik who just unmuted, we'll be running a discussion. The topic for Nivik's discussion is Jordan Christ Peterson. So it's literally going to be everything Jordan Peterson, and this is going to be starting in an hour after Jack's conversation here. So please join us for that one. Anyone on YouTube, please join us on Callin, the Pangburn Hangout. We are live every single day with new topics here on Callin.
You know, it's amazing. There's also the Discord. We'll be dropping in the chat every now and then just to make sure everybody can get a hold of that, so that we can join in and talk to us just about, if not every day, most days around the evening time. We'll have a bunch of conversations with as many people as we have here, if not more. I want to get this going right up again. Snark hasn't said anything in quite a while, and neither is Jeffrey, so I want to get Snark or Jeffrey to start in. Snark, are you there?
Hey, since they're asleep, can I address something you said
No,
earlier, Jack?
Nope. 100%. No, I was actually about to be like, well, they're not coming, so who wants to go?
Well, you said something about we need gods because of fear, right? And I agree with you completely.
I don't. No, I don't think we need gods because of fear.
Okay, well, or that's an argument that can be made for people who are theists, right? That that's fear motivated. Mm-hmm. And I want to agree with you, but I think it's fear of death.
Yeah, no, 100%. No, that is part of the fear motivation. Certainly, is death, death, punishment, all of it, and that fear of death, at least in my mind, is just because giving somebody an answer to something that's unknowable like that is very powerful, because it gives people the ideal that you or whoever told you this has some sort of forbidden or extra knowledge that you don't, and gives you comfort. And I think that maybe we needed that in the early stages of, humanity. And maybe I am speaking from a first world perspective on this, at least where we're at. But I don't think that's necessary anymore for, at least, I guess, the first world culture, because I would say that there's some people or some places that haven't gotten that far. But I think that they could be shown pretty easily. So so I think that it could be shown pretty easily. So no, I do. That's basically my stance on that part of it.
Is Jeff trying to say something?
Jeff,
are
you there?
My drink was slurping. I don't know if you had a question for me, or if you wanted me.
No. I just wanted to know if you had anything to say about what we've been talking about, or if you had another point or anything. Or...
I had another point. It's not really that well developed. I was just going to bounce it off of you. What if human brains are hardwired in terms of our hardware, not our software?
Okay, so like a literal some sort of physical connection to something.
Some sort of just the way that our brains work.
Right.
To believe that there's something external to us that's actually controlling the outcomes of the universe.
I would find that strange because there's so many people that don't believe that.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that that's true. I mean, people replace their God with the state, for example.
Sure, I'm sure people do. I don't have a replacement for that.
Something that's often talked to if you're talked about if you're talking to religious people.
I don't have a divine replacement for that necessarily. I would say that I hold true to the closer to the Paragon thing that I was talking about earlier for it.
Right, but you're still.
That's holding a higher ideal.
You're still projecting, everything that's external to you in terms of your locus of control. Like this, some people have very high internal locuses of control, and some people have less. And the people with lower, with higher, people with more external locuses of control, have a tendency to project their whatever it is that's doing the controlling of their world and their environment into some sort of supernatural being, whether it's they actually believe there's some personal deity or a.
See, I think
Gaia
I think
theory or something like that.
right.
Or
I mean, all of that
or
can be
even
done to me without the supernatural aspect of it. Like it can be, you can draw a line to where somebody would be great and a paragon of something and be like, well, they don't. There doesn't need to be anything supernatural about them. They're just they're the best in this field. They're like the top of humanity at this field right now until somebody can prove that they're better. And to me, that's not only is it real, it's something that you can check out, understand, verify, and then attempt to be greater than in pursuit of wanting to not only be the ideal for people, but to overcome that this quote unquote understood like limit of what's the best, and you can beat that. So I feel that that kind of view works just as well in motivation, or it will nowadays. Maybe it didn't in medieval times, but I think it will nowadays work as just as good a motivation for people as any kind of religion or spiritualism would. Because I think more people have an understanding that this religious stuff, like most of this, isn't as like viable or real as they were led to believe.
And I
yeah. I mean,
honestly,
I'm yeah. Go ahead.
sorry, I really like your bringing up the locus of control argument, Jeffrey, and I want to like kind of like engage with that a bit, if that's all right. I personally really think that internal locus of control comes from experience, like comes from experiencing yourself as an agent in the world, like having agency in yourself. So like the more you can do for yourself, the more that you learn, the more that you move around in the world and show yourself what you're capable of, the more that locus of control moves inwards. And the external locus of control, like it makes sense when you're an infant, but as you grow, it has to be indoctrinated. You have to be continually infantilized by indoctrination, whether that's theist indoctrination or statist indoctrination or whatever kind of cult that you belong to.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not so sure that everybody has the ability to develop an internal locus of control. I mean, I think you have to have certain environmental constraints that line up to make something like that happen.
Locus
Can you
of
give me
control.
specifics?
Well, like for example, you have to have some measure of success in actually determining your own outcomes.
Or you just like work out for a couple of days and see your muscles grow.
You need
Like it's not.
reflection, some form of reflection.
You just need
that helps you
evidence.
identify your internal locus of control.
Well,
I mean, I think
how many people fail at developing an exercise regime without a coach or a motivational partner, at least a motivational partner. And like I can tell you, when I was in organized sports and I had a coach telling me, okay, go do these exercises now, and I could just say yes, I'll go do it.
So do you think that
It
there's
makes
like
it
an
really
innate
easy.
alignment to one or the other?
Yeah, I think there's a solid probability that there's an innate alignment, and it's the exception. People people that like alphas like myself and Travis that we think we can go out and make something happen. And it's just because I have enough will to make it happen. I find that to be the exception in human behavior.
Or you've proven to yourself that you can, right? Like self-experimentation, like you're gathering evidence for your own agency, right? Like it can't be an accident. It can't just be some like inborn thing. I don't think.
I mean, I think there's some accident to who's an alpha and who's not an alpha. Who's a leader, right? What are the qualities that a person needs to become a leader? Like that, I don't think everybody has the capability of leading other people. Almost everybody has the capability of following. Some people don't, but in my experience, if somebody goes into a system that has a set of rules and they can just follow it, then whatever organization that I'm in, they could have a mantra that if I just follow the rules, then they will reward me, whoever they is. And if you ever say something like that, then you have an external locus of control, right?
Wait, so are we conflating internal locus of control with being an alpha? Because I don't think
that's a necessary. I think that's a necessary part of it. Yeah.
Really? Can you define what an alpha is? Like you've said, like a leader.
Yeah, the people that I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what the definition is. I think there's a common usage of it.
Well, I mean, I think it comes from
But alphas
some
are almost
twisted
always
form of
leaders,
like
right?
evolutionary psychology or whatever the hell. And I think that like, those arguments are based on non-human societies. And if you're trying to base that alpha concept off of like, say, wolves, which like a lot of dudes in that space do, then I hate to break it to you, but a male alpha is whoever the female alpha breeds with.
There's actually, when it comes to wolves specifically, when it comes to the alpha conversation, it seems to be that there's a much larger type of social hierarchy that goes on within them that kind of beats and precludes this notion of like alpha and not, because there is a wolf sometimes that is stronger than the one that's fucking all of the females.
Mm-hmm.
And the alpha one would be the one you'd think would be the strongest and biggest, but it's the one who's capable of breeding with the most. That's the alpha in that case. The bigger and stronger one sure is like the one who's taking care of and protecting the pack most of the time. They're like, the set of stronger ones. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're in control or in charge of what's going on. There's also a set of like matriarchal differences in wolves that have like a whole set of shit that are like different levels of which female wolf is in charge of shit indifferently. There's not really an alpha or a matriarch in any of that really. There's just the ones who screw the most and the ones who are in charge, and that can shift quite frequently in wolves. The guy who actually wrote the book originally about alphas rescinded what he felt about it, but it was in pop culture too far for him to actually get rid of the term.
Do you think that wolves worship deities the way that corvids do? Like ravens, for example, building like altars and burying their dead and stuff?
I think maybe the wolves worship the moon.
What'd you say, Ma? I didn't get that last part.
I think maybe the wolves worship the moon.
The moon? Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
I mean, if they worship anything, what else would they?
What else would it be? If you're gonna draw a line, I guess that would be a pretty easy line to try and draw. The moon, I suppose. That's a good one. Yeah. Is it Lex? What do you think going on? What do you got going on in your noggin over there? Lex. No,
I don't think Lex is in the room, brother.
For some reason, he is still here in mine.
Yeah, try refreshing. You just have to scroll up.
No, it won't. It's not.
No, he's not here.
Let me refresh I got to go out to the main page to do it for some reason. Hold on. All right, there we go. Now I've got everybody in there. That's fucking ridiculous. All right, so let's see. Donald, what do you think so far? What do you got going on in your noggin? 1 time for the money, 2 time for the show, 3 time you can't get on the mic because you're not here, though. Meaning?
Yeah, so I mean, Jack, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. So what are your current feelings? Have any of your positions changed since you started this conversation?
Yes.
Okay.
I've actually shifted into a more concrete position than I came in here with. I only had an idea of what could be done as a replacement for a second, but as it kept going on, and as I introduced myself randomly to the Paragon idea that I was talking about, I've found myself much more concretely standing in the corner of that. It certainly today isn't necessary, and I'm pretty positive that we could achieve almost all of the same effects with real, tangible people real people that existed at one point or another that have human stories that are not perfect in every single way that we can learn from in different ways. That I just think that I've gotten more concrete in that position as this has gone on. And I think that the position that, I don't, does humanity need gods or not, right, as it is today, I think that that's also gotten more concrete, and no, we do not.
Well, it might be
I came in here a little more in the middle, but
might...
I've come down a little more concrete over here.
Yeah, I mean, it might be interesting to ask, everyone who's in the room here individually, like, do they think they need God in their life or a concept of God?
That's actually a really great.
I could start by answering first. I would say, no. I have my moral foundation to call on with regards to solving moral dilemmas. I allow the scientific consensus to let me know what seems to be going on in reality based on the evidence available, and to get my butt out of bed. I have artistic and scientific inspiration. And then I have skepticism babysitting all of those things, continuing to question anything, sorting bullshit from reality. So out of those things that I think one needs to achieve to be able to claim a clarified mind, I don't see a place where I need to have God. There's a process of self-authoring your pleasure hierarchy to understand where you might be able to maximize the inspirations in your life. But again, when I look at my own pleasure hierarchy, I don't see a need for God or gods. That's my answer.
Mm-hmm. Wow, I feel like that's fairly comprehensive there. Is it Donald, do you think what is do you think you humanity, you actually need a god or gods? Is it something that you need?
I think God exists. So whether I need him or not, he's there. It's not a he anyway. It's not a he or a she. I think it's kind of, without sounding weird, maybe it will. God is everything. Maybe before the Big Bang. First of all, does he have to have known everything always? In other words, if you strip down forget about religion. What is God? He would have to understand that he exists. He'd have to be self-conscious, conscious of himself. He would have to be kind of permeate the entire universe. You can't say that otherwise you get to how many gods are there. But maybe he just doesn't know everything. Maybe this is just the best he could come up with. That the spiritual energy that is God, it's the best that they could come up with, and said, okay, Big Bang, now let's do it. And that's why we have strife, and that's why we don't have everything being perfect. And so maybe God, he would have to know a lot to create this thing, or to allow it to happen. So okay, forget about trying to convince you that that's the case. But the idea that whether we need God or not, I think God is a real thing. So I don't really ask the question whether I need him. He doesn't enter my life.
So your position is your belief in God precludes the necessity for him, because he exists. It doesn't matter if he's necessary or not.
I take so
your presupposition that he exists is that okay.
But Donald, let's not avoid the question though. If I'm to ask you, and let's say I force you into a dichotomous answer.
No, I don't need God.
Okay.
Because I don't live. To me, it's a philosophical thought process. It's more than it's like being in philosophy class. Oh my God, the world doesn't exist. Yeah, well, hit somebody over the table with a chair, and you'll say that chair really is real. So for me, it's more of a philosophical question. So no, I don't think that atheists are any less moral. My concept, he doesn't exist in my life day to day, just in conversation.
Okay. So your answer to do you need a god or God is it doesn't matter if you need him or not. He exists.
Well, that would be it. But there's an interesting.
So what would the answer be then?
No, I don't need God in my life. No, and that So no.
Okay.
But I still believe he exists. But
right. Okay, no, it's okay. So lead me through the process so that you say okay. Let's say you've subscribed to it like a holy that you don't need him, but he does exist. How does that look for you?
What do you mean?
How does that look? How does that look through like your worldview? If you subscribe to the fact that you don't need him in your life, but he does exist.
Right. Well, my concept, I guess, would be most similar if I was going to compare it to people's belief systems. It'd be like the deists, the founders. They said, yeah, he exists, he's out there, but he shouldn't have any place in government, and we don't really think about it much past that. So I guess that's the closest thing I could describe.
So it'd be closer. So okay, so you'd swing over to having more of a deist view of it in that sense. Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. Now,
okay.
I'd love to throw out one thought piece. It takes about 30 seconds to throw out there, and it's just interesting to me. It's not an agenda. It's this. It's so interesting to me about like going from like being very logical minded, etc. But when you think about alchemy, we get the word chemistry from alchemy, and they learn so much about metallurgy and all that stuff by trying to create gold out of lead. And we would have had chemistry; they would have figured it out anyway. But so much knowledge for something that was like trying to spin, gold in straw. So that's strange. It's interesting. Also, astronomy came after astrology. So
I see. The thing is like, well, I think that's like a valid like thought process to have. I think that if it worked, I don't think that would have disincentivized anyone to keep trying to change shit into shit. Like,
right.
Even if the first time that they tried it, they turned lead into gold, I don't think that it would have disencouraged them from being like, okay, now that we know that we could do that, let's try more. Like, so I don't think that I think that it works in the same way that does. Is it?
Well, like astrology was, the gods are up there. We have to learn all the configuration of the stars to help us guide us through life. And astronomy came later, and I find that interesting too. I don't know what it proves, but it just means that I think it's important for people that are, for some reason, get knowledge out of things that is based on
astronomy and astrology are super duper.
No, my point is that the people that were into astrology, right, the ancients that were, they learned more about the stars than anybody else and it was for religious, like fantastical, non-realistic reasons, in the same sense that trying to make gold out of lead was ridiculous, and yet it probably advanced chemistry by like decades, if not hundreds of years. That's all I'm saying. And I find that interesting.
I think there's just as big of a chance that there was somebody, just fascinated with the sky and wanted to study it as well as there was that wanted to attribute it to the fact that may be where the gods are or something like that. So again, I agree with the thought process on it. Like, that thought process isn't like invalid or anything like that. But I also every one of these things I think can also be achieved without having to have God involved in it, or like any type of any of that.
I hear you. No.
Is it so? Meaning, if you want to come back in for just a schmeckent, if you're there still.
Yep, I'm here.
Yeah, so is it do you think you need God? Or gods?
Do I think I need them? Yeah. I don't know. I don't have a good answer for you. I think you know my position pretty well. I just don't have a good answer.
Fair enough. I mean, I love that answer is you don't know, and it's not some sort of, well, I don't know, but let me wrap. You've got it. Like, I'm not sure, and I love that. I love that you understand. That's like so cool. And so we will move on to Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Do you need a god or gods?
Yeah, I mean, since you narrowed it down to deities, I'm going to say no.
Oh, okay. Is it Nivik?
Yeah.
Do you need a god or gods? Is it something that's necessary in your life?
I think it could be relative. I mean, sometimes depending on the time, belief might be necessary. Maybe it can show what's wrong with society.
But Nivik, in your life right now, do you need?
Thank you, Trav.
God.
Or if I need to believe in God, no. But I just thought that the others, just to have the belief in general society, could be good.
Okay. Was it Masha?
I'm gonna surprise you and say yes. I need God so badly. But unfortunately, he's abandoned me in this soul prison so that my sweet suffering can be fed on by the archons. So fuck that guy.
Is this a type of like a pinhead situation?
No, it comes from like Like anyway, it would take way too long to explain, but anyway, that was just a joke.
I mean, one of the most I remember when after I was leaving like theism fully and I was going into atheism, I attempted to try and like imagine other types of things that it could be instead, just to like to
Hmm.
feed that kind of like feeling and that emotion like in me, and I was pretending like, oh well, like what if like we're all these what if we're all these like energy beings that are trapped here by some greater energy being, and we're made to live in these flesh prisons, and we've got to like
Hmm.
want and need for this greater existence that we know is out there, but we can't attain it. And I thought, and that was like one of my first thoughts going out of theism into just straight up atheism, because I made a quick bridge in and out. I didn't really visit too many other places. Is it
Nice.
it's fucking and I thought it was definitely interesting to me at the time. Is that something similar to what you're talking about there?
Yes, yeah. And it's like a whole there's like several authors that write like that used to write in that space. I'm not sure if the movement's dead or not, but anyway, if you're looking for something to replace that thirst for like atheism, as a female supremacist, I highly recommend yoni worship.
A female supremacist state. What is yoni worship?
Masha's awesome, and I've liked your takes today. I hope you join our
100%.
Discord server.
Yeah, you got to join our Discord for sure.
All right, I will.
You too, Donald. Really appreciate you being open, man.
Donald, yeah, you got to get
awesome.
in there too. I love your takes.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
I'd invite Meaning in, but he's already there.
Oh yeah.
So
you guys, I dropped the hang on, Nivik, 2 seconds. Dude, you have your whole own show coming up soon. Save your breath. I dropped you guys the Discord link in the comment section there, so feel free to join us. I will drop it for everyone on YouTube as well. And Jack,
please and thank you.
Yeah, it's all yours there, Jack.
Oh man, no, I'm ready to actually get going because I've got some other stuff that I would like to attend to today, but I enjoyed everybody's take here today. I appreciate everybody spending the time to come in and call in. I appreciate everybody taking the time to listen to everything we had to say. I am glad that we all got to a lot of different positions, and we all kind of came out and said where we're really at with it. And it seems like that even though we've all, we're all not too super far away, it just all seems like we've got a couple of different like niche, spots about our thinking in there that change up where we're at. So I think it'll be interesting if we can get a little closer sometime. But I would like to say, again, thanks everybody. I'm going to go ahead and end the show. I appreciate everybody. I want to
thanks, Jack.
Make sure that everybody had a great time today. Goodbye.
Oh, pickles.